My name is Mateo Clarke. I'm the brigade captain of Open Austin. Open Austin is a civic tech group. We're all volunteers who get together and we look at city data and we try to make sense of it. So I'm going to talk about some projects that we've looked at related to the housing crisis, affordability crisis in Austin. A little bit about Open Austin. We're really project focused. We're really behind this idea of open source software. And whenever, maybe what I'm going to do a little bit of tonight is what we call open government advocacy. So poking the city of Austin and other local governments when we think they can do things better. So the question is, can a smart city be affordable? This problem is well documented in local news. We know that people are being displaced. We know that communities are being demolished, and there's real people that this affects. There's people that live in mobile homes who are the victims of really exploitative practices of landlords. And our city's taken certain steps to cure some of these problems, but there's a lot more work to be done, and especially at the rate that our city's changing. So I have three questions that are kind of framed as like problem statements or research questions that some of our volunteers asked to get a better understanding of this problem, of this housing crisis, right? First one is, where have Austin's residential property values increased the most? And so here I'm looking specifically here some of our volunteers did research around property, like the land values, okay? Not necessarily the housing value, but the land itself. And that data is provided by TCAD. TCAD stands for the Travis County Appraisal District. Those of you that are homeowners are very familiar with TCAD. And so this is data they provide. It's really, really rich data. It gives you information not only about how much the land is worth, but how much a property, like the building itself, is worth. So I have to give a shout out to John Clarke, who's in the audience tonight. He runs this really awesome blog called Spatial Austin, and he did some analysis. I encourage you to visit this map and play with it in your own time, but what you can really see is that just east of I-35, the land values have gone up like crazy. And this is over the past 10 years, looking back at 2005. So really valuable data, really awesome analysis here. Problem is, this data is not very open. It's not free. To do this type of analysis, it can cost almost $1,000. TCAD will only give you this data if you pay them $55 per each year. So, and on top of that, you have to pay another $25 for the shapefile, which is kind of the GIS data you need to make sense of this. So this type of analysis would cost you $900, and that's not right. So I believe, and kind of my first assertion tonight, is that a smart city, or in this case the county, should make property data free and open for anybody to look at. Okay, second question. Where are construction and demolition permits being requested, right? So how can we use the city's data to get a picture about how new buildings are being put up and maybe older buildings are being torn down? So the city of Austin has this endpoint, this website, where you can request this type of data. Great. But you can only look for it for 1 week at a time, and that's not very helpful. Luckily, there's things called computers that are good at doing repetitive work. So some of our volunteers put together a script to get this data. But whenever they got their hands on it, this is hard to see. But this is an Excel file that has like HTML embedded in it. So it's just really, really nasty data. And it takes work. It's not a trivial task to make sense of this data. But some of our volunteers are able to do it. I really have to give a shout out to Lukman Dawuji, who put all this data, construction permits in the city of Austin, all the way back to 1980, online, free and available for anyone to search. And the URL is up there in the top right corner if you're interested. You can search your own address and start to see stuff that's happened in your own neighborhood. And this is kind of a victory, because soon after we did this, the city of Austin started publishing this data as well. I don't know whether there was already plans to do this, but this is kind of the thing where we like to take credit for poking them a little bit and moving this stuff forward. So this is a win, right? A smart city makes construction permit data free and open. Okay, last question here is, how has Austin's housing supply changed, and how has this affected neighborhoods? So one of our volunteers, Julia Montgomery, her Twitter handle's in the right corner there. She's done some really awesome GIS work. Looking at, and I kind of made the caveat earlier, we're looking at land value. This is taking the whole picture, the whole property value. And her findings in this, she used data not only from the construction permit data that we helped liberate, but also some of the Austin Board of Realty, looking at data about how much housing is worth, but also looking at places like how much has the housing stock increased, and looking at that by zip codes. And her conclusion is that the most expensive housing back in 2010 was in West Austin, and it also increased the most in value. And we can see that little housing was built there. The housing supply stayed relatively stagnant in West Austin. And the counter to that example is the University Neighborhood Overlay. So West Campus is a place in Austin where the housing density increased a lot. And that's the 78705 zip code is the place where affordability was relatively maintained. In the process of doing this analysis, Julie and some of our other volunteers came across these three type of forms. If you've done construction on your house, maybe you recognize the first one there. But so number one, this is the form you would fill out if you were doing work on a single family house or duplex. And it's really great because it's asking the person that's doing construction how many units were here before, how many are going to be there afterwards. So from this one form alone, we can track the change in the housing stock really, really well. Unfortunately, the form here is the form that a building across the street would use whenever they do construction. It's also the same kind of form that a multi-family apartment complex would fill out. And it's a lot less clear. The number of units, what does that mean? Is it the number of units before? Is it the number of units after? Is it the number of units this construction affects? This form has a user experience problem, and it shows up in the data that our volunteers were playing with. It's not very clear how housing stock has changed. So we really just need to make better forms. This third form is the most problematic. It's if you're going to demolish something or demolish units, this is what you would fill out. And there's absolutely no place for you to tell the city how many units are being demolished. The last point here, the last assertion I'll make is that a smart city should collect accurate data on how many units are being built and demolished, and we currently are not doing that. So just to summarize, smart cities should, one, publish property value data without fees, and two, it should collect and publish accurate data for housing units, their permits and demolitions. So that's what I got. If you have questions about this stuff, snap a picture of my information, and I'm happy to talk more.
Thank you. So again, the availability of data, open data, and other data provided by companies in some cases.